You can move on.
Do you think that like when it comes to determining whether an argument is valid or not,
Hmm.
truth tables play a big part? Like we're gonna say truth tables
Sure.
is the most effective part in determining if an argument is valid or invalid.
Valid or invalid? So
Yeah.
whether or not you find a theorem about propositional logic or not, a truth table doesn't have any bearing on that. Like, you don't need truth tables for that, right? You just need to know the axioms of propositional logic, and you need to know the inference method that is chosen to derive new theorems in the propositional logic. You don't need truth
Okay.
tables,
So
right?
okay. Yeah.
However,
So then if the
yeah.
okay.
Well,
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
there's a
So
known.
if like someone has an argument.
Hmm.
Yeah. So if someone has an argument
Hmm.
and we're not using a truth table to determine whether the argument is valid or not. Or just like getting the form of the argument and see if it matches any correct form, like
Hmm.
inferences or anything like that.
Sure.
Then you're saying that if it doesn't match it, it's gonna be invalid. But if it doesn't match like an inference, you're saying it's gonna be valid.
Yes. And what I was going to say was,
I don't agree with that.
well, there's a theorem.
Sorry, I do agree with that. Sorry, I'm
There's a
retarded. So I'm
theorem.
drunk. I'm drunk.
There's a meta theorem, right, about propositional logic specifically, which states every theorem that you could derive from the axioms of propositional logic is guaranteed to be a tautology as written out in a truth table. And vice
Yeah,
versa. Any statement that ends
understand.
up being a tautology can also be derived from the axioms of propositional
Yep,
logic. Right?
yep, understand. No problem there.
Yep.
I just wanted a bit of clarity on determining whether an argument is valid or invalid. And you're saying we can do so within the use of inferences. If you write out the argument's form and the argument doesn't match any inference at all, then it's just by definition invalid. Which I don't disagree with.
Correct. Again, make sure we're only talking about propositional logic because that doesn't work in first order logic.
Yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. I'm more interested in prop logic anyway, true function and logic anyway.
Yeah.
What are you guys
Categorical
talking
logic to
about,
me
bro?
just categorical logic to me just seems like very outdated and very like probably like the limited. It's probably like the most limited, I guess, kind of like type of logic there is to me anyway.
Uh,
Can I ask what you guys are talking about?
well, we're just talking about
Shit,
Yeah, we're
logic.
just
math,
talking about
logic.
yeah, just talking about Fitch deductive systems, I guess, like logic
No,
and things like that. Yeah.
no, I thought you were talking about the Trinity because I got confused. A.
Nope.
No, no, no Trinity. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, insofar as talking about whether there's um, like you know what mathematical Platonism is, right? The view that numbers, sets,
Hmm.
things like that
Hmm.
objectively exist. Or
Yeah,
like some sort of like
yeah.
yeah.
I don't know what people mean when they
Isn't
I
that
say
what
that,
isn't
and normally they're
isn't that
just
what
idiots.
allegedly Ian believes? I don't know.
yeah, I don't agree with that at all. And
Hmm.
I'm like a mathematical anti-realist. I
Hmm.
think that these things
Yeah.
like I deny the abstract realm. I don't think these things objectively exist. And
Why do they
to
why do they have to
justify
be
that,
in an
Well,
abstract
it
realm?
depends on what you mean by
one way
objective.
to
I would say that they objectively exist because I don't use a dumb definition of objective. To me, an objective statement is any statement based on facts, data, and evidence. So 1 plus 1 equals 2 has a fuck ton of evidence for it, and hence it's objectively true. I don't. That's how I use the word
uh,
objective. That is not a
yeah,
Platonist point of view. It's got nothing to do with like these things exist in God's butt or something, right? I don't think that at all.
hmm. Yeah, so you're saying they're necessarily like, for example, 2 plus 2 equaling 4 is necessarily true. It's like some sort of logical truth, right?
Yeah,
No, it has a
universal
ton of
truth.
evidence. It has a ton of evidence. I don't care about logic.
Yeah, it has a ton of evidence for it being a logical truth, which I don't disagree with.
Well, we invented logic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same with maps.
So the hang on.
Logic is a part of maps.
Yes, correct. Logic is a part of
Yeah.
math. Yes. The but the problem the semantics here maybe, right, is We invented logic to try to describe the world. There is nothing in that statement that guarantees the stuff that we figured out in the abstract is guaranteed to comport with the real world. It may not. I don't know. So the only time a statement in propositional logic is actually true in the real world has nothing to do with the derivation of it in a logic system. It has to do with the fact that there's a ton of evidence for its truth in the real world.
But I'm not sure. So when you say
Probably.
truth in the real world,
Mhm.
are you talking about it being reliable in like
Evidence.
sorry, being reliable in like some sort of yeah okay.
Evidence. Yeah.
Um
Evidence
yeah,
based.
but I can be an anti-realist and say and still do the same thing and just say it's still like still mind dependent. Like for example,
Hmm.
I'm of the view that like words and language doesn't objectively exist in like any form, right? It's just gonna be like something mind. Yes, yeah, it's gonna be mind dependent. It's how we humans communicate, but it's like very reliable insofar as like communication wise and things like that. But I don't think that alone guarantees that it's gonna objectively exist or something like that.
I mean, it would have to
I think it's
depend on what you mean.
quasi-real or whatever the fuck it's called.
Like, if you were to tell me that the word good doesn't have an objective meaning, I would say, what the fuck are you talking about? There's all kinds of evidence on how human beings use the word good. Now, if you were to tell me there isn't some, universalism in which good was found inscribed on a rock and that guaranteed what that thing would mean for all eternity, well, I would agree with you that that doesn't exist, right? But the fact that the word good has an objective meaning is obvious because there's a fuck ton of evidence
Yeah,
for it.
yeah, but I'm saying I can agree that humans define good and use good in a very like an extremely meaningful way.
Mm-hmm.
It's
But I'm saying
quasi-realism,
Mm-hmm.
But
right?
I'm saying, well, because they use it, or try to use it in a meaningful way, doesn't take away that it's still a primitive term. And what I mean by primitive is sort of like conceptually irreducible, right? Such that if you try to um, engage with what what good means and things like that, you can do it, but eventually it's gonna lead to some circularity like in all language. There's gonna be some terms that just are fun like they're assumed. They're like fundamental primitives that just cannot be
Yeah,
conceptually
like
irreduced.
presuppositions, yeah.
Uh,
What's the presupposition?
Well, they would just be presuppositions.
Well, I don't take non-inferential accounts to be presuppositions. I take a presupposition to be a proposition that is unjustified, but somebody assumes it.
that doesn't exist. I mean, who does
I
that?
agree. Propositions don't exist.
No, no one defines a logic system without having good reasons why they did it the way that they did.
But what I'm saying is exclusive to logic, like formal systems, like for deductive systems. I'm just saying that, like when usually when
What?
people talk about presuppositions, they're talking about an unjustified term that is assumed and is also a proposition, like a
Right,
claim or something.
right, but you're making it out like because you assume something to be true, there's no requirement for you to give reasons why you thought that you should take that to be true. And that's just not
Well, I
correct
think
at
that
all.
yeah. Well, I agree that it's not correct, but I'm saying it's not correct insofar as it being sort of uh I guess relative to the
It's just
domain, like
something
is
you
that
have to assume is true in order
I'm
for
aware I'm
logic to
aware
work.
that I'm aware that there's like you can say there's like well I wouldn't even say there's presuppositions in logic at all if unless you take like an axiom to be a presupposition or something.
Um,
Can they be? I don't know.
if that's what you mean by presupposition, I don't even know.
Nah.
I don't even know that there's a difference between presupposition and axiom. Axiom just means something you assume is true.
Yeah, so it's something you assume that it so yeah you assume it's true without it's like non-inferential it's like sort of like self-evident in a sense like you assume it's true in virtue of it just being primitive, right? But then like presuppositions
Okay,
aren't.
I think
gonna be...
I think we're just talking past each other.
Yeah, it says
You,
an axiom is a starting point accepted as true without proof,
yes. So
upon which a system of logic is
so
built,
there's
which is a presupposition.
hang on. Yes. There's two levels here, and we're probably just talking past each other. The definition of axiom or presupposition is just to declare something to be true without proof. Okay? I'm saying that when it comes to the real world, because that's what I thought we were talking about, there is no time ever in which someone shouldn't be questioned on why they take certain statements to be true and other statements to not be true. Like, there obviously that is a requirement. For example, Hamilton wrote a book, and he took as the third axiom basically the contrapositive, right, or the contraposition. So that's his third axiom for propositional logic. He took it as an axiom. Why did he take that as an axiom? Well, mathematically, you could say he doesn't have to give a reason, because mathematics doesn't give a fuck about the usefulness of logic. He just declared these to be axioms. The real questions you should ask are his axioms consistent? Do they lead to things that look like good, true statements? Does it not have any contradictions? These are the things that...
okay. Now I understand.
Right? These are the things you would be technically interested in. But at the end of the day, if you sat down with Grandpa Hamilton and asked him, why the fuck did you take Axiom 3 to be true? He'd be like, well, look at the goddamn world. Axiom 3 seems to comport with everything we fucking do all the time. So obviously we should take that as an axiom.
Now I agree. Now I agree. So it's not the like so like let's say you have something that you assume to be true, like an axiom.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you can't do that. It's that how plausible is it? Like
yes.
How plausible is something being brute?
Yes.
Right?
And yes.
If like you're saying it's if you're saying it's plausible in virtue of well just like when we assume it's true, just like look what is like being done and things like. Then you get it plausible that way. But if you're assuming something is brute and it's not plausible, then someone's gonna like wonder how mysterious and sort of strange that is.
Yes,
I understand that.
Yes, if he took some other fucking freakishly large proposition and you're like, what the hell is that shit? And it turned out that it actually is equivalent to propositional logic. You'd still have people looking at him and being like, yeah, but why'd you take that statement that has 78 variables in it? Why would you take that as your axiom? That just seems nonsensical, dude. Even if it came out with the exact same logic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
you could just say it's like plausible or something.
Yeah.
So probably show why it's plausible.
Yeah, he would have to demonstrate something along the lines of, well, I was being clever because if I took this really large one, it actually combined axiom 2 and 3, and then we didn't actually have to have 2 axioms. And so I got away with only having 2 rather than 3 axioms for the entire system. So isn't that a cool thing? And then other people, would clap and be like, "Oh my gosh, you're amazing," right? But other than it just being an exercise in coolness, right? You still are required to provide some reason why you would do it that way. This is why when someone is stupid and says something as dumb as, "I declare God to be true or exist," and then you say, "Why?" And then they say, "You can't question me on my axioms because I can take whatever I want as axioms." That is dumb as fuck. Obviously, you can question axioms. That makes no frickin' sense.
Yeah, it's the if it's plausible that God or the claim involving God is an axiom or not, right? Which is then like leads to you questioning and then
Yeah.
yeah.
If someone
I
said,
understand that.
"I declared God